I'm George. I spent 8 years at the Big Four across both London and Sydney before I was made redundant. And when I did leave the Big Four, I had to really change the way in which I spoke. I knew I was targeting industry roles. I was pretty burnt out after so long at the Big Four, being completely honest with you. And I knew I wanted to land an industry role. So I had to change the way in which I spoke from consultant or fluffy talk into operator language. Here's a copy of my CV from a few years back. And here's a copy of the CV that actually got me hired. Now, in this video, we're going to be talking about the mechanism that actually got me from A to B and to the CV that got me hired. And that mechanism is what I like to call the translation protocol. Now, within the translation protocol, there are a couple of aspects that we're going to be talking about today. Number one is the language aspect on the actual CV. And point two, which I think is quite often forgotten, is the actual structure of the CV too. So today we're going to be diving into both of those sections. We're actually going to be doing a live walkthrough with a generic mock-up consultant CV, and we're going to be rewriting it live with you using the translation protocol as the mechanism to get this into a state that is ready to be viewed by industry hiring managers. To showcase the translation protocol, I've actually got a mock-up of a Big Four consultant CV, and we're going to rewrite this live in today's video. So with no further ado, let's just get into it. So as you'll be able to see on the screen, I've got a mock-up of a Big Four CV from a manager at Deloitte, Alex Smith in this case, and we're going to assess this from the two aspects in the translation protocol as we spoke about before. Number one being the actual language in the CV, and number two being the structure. So first things first, let's talk about the structure actually, because I think that's a good place to start. So in terms of the key sections here, we've got professional summary, professional experience, education and certifications and skills. The key sections are all there, more or less, so that's not too bad. In terms of the actual template itself, it's boring, it's a white background. I personally wouldn't use this. What I did was I went to Etsy and bought a pack of CV templates as well that I used for my industry applications. I would highly recommend spending $10 and doing the same. It's worthwhile investment if you haven't done that already. So don't use a plain white background, number one. Also, the other thing that is brought to my attention instantly as well is that within the professional experience section, Alex actually hasn't listed the projects that he was working on. So you want to make it immediately obvious for hiring managers, even though you're moving into industry, you still want to show a step-by-step breakdown of the projects you worked on in consulting. So for example, if you were a program manager at a leading Australian bank, write that as the subheading underneath Deloitte, KPMG, whatever, and then list your experience underneath that subheader. So if you're a program manager at a leading Australian bank, then you can go into the tasks, the action, and the result of each of those bullet points thereafter. So that's one thing that Alex hasn't done in this CV, and that I would strongly urge that you do and that you need to do, even though you're translating your experience to industry. It makes it easier for the hiring manager to see what you've done, and it also really brings out those relevant projects that you worked on to the industry hiring manager as well. Now, one thing I should probably also talk about is that those projects, you don't necessarily need to list them in order of like how recent they were. If there was a project that was more relevant to the role that you're applying to, you can list that one first, right? So if you're applying for a senior program manager role and you were a senior program manager on one of your client engagements and you achieved an excellent result for the client, absolutely put that one as your first header. Okay, so those are the couple of things I would really stress, guys. So A, good, nice template. B, talk about the projects you worked on and put the most relevant ones first, or the most important ones first as well. Apart from that, in terms of structure, it's generally an okay CV. It's got the key sections there. So we've spoken about structure. Let's talk about language now. So let's look at the first section here, professional summary. Alex is highly motivated and experienced management consulting manager with over 8 years of experience at the Big Four firm, proven track record in those sectors, has some skills in project management, stakeholder engagement, change management, is an Agile and Prince 2 practitioner. As professional summaries go, it's pretty good on the whole. In terms of things that we could change here, Alex is applying for industry roles, so he should maybe make this a bit more tailored to industry and some of the hard skills that he's got as well, so changing some of the language there. So talking about maybe strategic process ownership as an example, also mentioning if he's got some SQL or Python skills, you can absolutely put those there as well, just as an example. Also, you should try and tailor the professional summary to the role, saying you have an active interest in a specific area if you can and if relevant. So that's personally what I would do for the professional summary section. Now let's go into professional experience, and we'll rewrite some of these bullet points as well as we go through, just so you guys can see how I personally would do this. So as we spoke about before, Alex hasn't listed the projects he's worked on. That's probably the first thing in terms of structure that I would change. So we can actually do that now. What I would do is, we can see he's worked on a large scale digital transformation for a tier 1 bank. So what I would do, I would put, if he was, instead of managing the PMO, we could say maybe if he was a project lead. I'm going to assume he was a project lead here. Project lead on a project lead for a leading Australian bank. And then within that, we've got the bullet points, and we can talk about the things that he did. Okay, so as we spoke about before, we also don't want to use too much soft language. As we can see here, Alex managed the PMO. Now, a PMO suggests that you were a secretary, or you were taking minutes, or maybe formatting slides. Industry recruiters don't like this sort of language, so let's try and avoid this entirely. The only exception to this rule is if you're actually applying for a PMO role in industry. There are obviously internal PMO functions, and you can obviously mention that you were involved in a PMO in some capacity if that's the case. But even still, you still want to talk about the deliverables that you owned, and then the hard ROI or the results. Alex has not done that in this case, so that's one thing I would personally change. For the sake of this video, we're going to assume that we're not applying for a PMO role, so I'm actually going to just delete this bullet point entirely because I don't think it's required. Now we're going to go on to bullet point 2, which is stakeholder management. So we can see that Alex supported the lead partner in engaging with key stakeholders across finance, HR, and operations to gather requirements and ensure alignment on the target operating model design. So as we can see, we're using the word supported, which is far too passive a word. It doesn't show that we owned anything. So this is one thing that needs to change, especially if we were a senior consultant or a manager where you're taking ownership for things. It's just the wrong language to use. So I'm going to rewrite this one live with you guys so you can actually see how I would do it. We're making some assumptions on the actual result here because this is just a mock-up of a CV. What I would say is led X number of, or let's just say ed 5 requirements, gathering workshops across finance, HR, and operations. Alongside the lead partner, to ensure alignment on the target operating model and identified X number, so we can say 2 million in operational savings, something like that. Just using this as an example here, guys. It might not be anything to do with savings. It might be some other sort of improvement or benefit. But the fact of the matter is we've given a hard benefit, and you should always try and do that if possible. So we've changed the language to more active language that we've led. We've given a number of workshops or some sort of deliverable or something that we perform, the actual task, to get to X result. So the other thing to call out is, where possible, try and call out the key stakeholders you've worked with. So in this case, we've got the lead partner. If you've worked with a program director on the client side or a senior program manager on the client side, do try and mention those. It shows that you were given exposure to very senior people and had exposure with key people on the program as well. And that's one thing I can really vouch for at the Big Four. you are given that exposure even from quite a junior grade quite early, so you can definitely put those details in your CV too. And then obviously the result here identified 2 million in operational savings. As we said, it might not be anything to do with savings, but the fact that you've given a hard metric where possible, again, whilst being truthful and not lying, absolutely do so. Another top tip I've got is if you're struggling to think of the hard metrics, the way to do it is you would have written a final report on some of your engagements. There's often some metrics that you can refer to in there to just jog your memory if you don't remember, that you can absolutely refer to in your CV as well. And that's what I did when I was preparing my CV for industry. So there we go. That's one of the bullet points, and that gives you an idea of how I would personally write it. Just not make that bold as well. So again, here we've got strategy delivery, the word assisted in the development of a 5-year strategic roadmap, conducted market research, facilitated client workshops to map as-is processes, and prepared client decks for executive presentations. Again, we've got the word assisted. I'm just going to highlight that in red for now. That's probably the key thing here that needs to change. Again, very passive language. You can say that you directed the development of a 5-year strategic roadmap. And again, try and give some hard ROI or hard metrics at the end. Increased efficiency by 50%, by 100%, these sort of hard metrics. Change management, again, collaborated, it's too soft. Let's try and get rid of that again. And then we've got team leadership. This point's not too bad. Anything where you mentored or managed junior staff, even if you weren't a manager, absolutely keep that on here. Recruiters do love that. There's still a big emphasis on that in industry too. So that's actually a pretty good point. So let's move on to the senior consultant section and look at how we would rewrite and adjust some of these points too. So taking the first point on process improvement here, Alex has written that he's conducted a deep dive analysis of the client's procurement processes and mapped process flows in Visio and identified opportunities for standardization across business units. Again, it's quite generic. There's not really any numbers here as well, and we don't know what the so what on the result is. So let's give this one a go and let me show you how I would personally rewrite it. Again, we're making some assumptions on what the result was here. Again, this is just a mock-up of a CV. So I'm just going to use some example language here and results. Obviously tailor it to whatever results you had on your client engagement. So let's just say directed 5 deep dive workshops across the client procurement processes to identify opportunities for standardization, and achieve 2 million in cost savings as an example. So let's just get rid of that. So as you can see, obviously I've made up some of these results in this case, and the end result might not necessarily always want to do with savings. It might be to do with operational efficiencies, increasing business agility. The main thing is you want to put hard metrics to these benefits where possible. Okay, I've just used cost savings as an example here. So we've clearly got some strong active language. We use it directed. We've said X number of workshops, and we've identified 2 million in cost savings. Okay. So I'm not going to go too much into detail in other bullet points today on the CV, but you guys are getting the gist of how I would personally go about turning this from fluffy consulting language into actionable, direct, strong language for industry recruiters. Okay. A couple of other things to call out in this senior consultant section as well. Probably the key one here is, let's look at the client deliverables section. Responsible for the quality assurance of final client deliverables, ensuring all slides were formatted correctly. Now, that just makes you sound like a slide monkey, right? So everyone knows that consultants love PowerPoint. We spend most of our lives in PowerPoint there as well. For industry recruiters, that's a big no-no. I'll be honest, I barely use PowerPoint since I've been in industry, or a lot less than I did in consulting, much less. So you want to take that out entirely. So I would actually remove that part entirely and put the so what to something else. So responsible for the QA of client deliverable, ensuring the project was delivered on time and on budget, and resulting in $1 million of additional work in terms of follow-on projects, something like that. Okay, so anything to do with slides and formatting, get rid of it. It makes you sound like a secretary and a junior, etc., rather than actually owning a solution. Cool. So let's move on to the rest of the CV. Again, in this consultant section, we can see the word supported here as well. That's a no-no. Again, we want to change that to active language. The education and certification section, that's okay. That's not too bad. We've got where he went to uni, certifications as well. We've got Prince, Lean Six Sigma on there, Scrum Master, great. Add any other IT qualifications you had as well, especially if you've got ones related to coding or AI, put them on there. Industry recruiters love that these days. Now the skills section, this is the secret sauce that I was talking about, and this is really important in this section as well. So a lot of companies are now using the applicant tracking system to vet CVs as well, and you really want to put in as many hard skills or industry language words as you can in this section. Okay, so there's a lot of PMO and stuff here that's far too soft and fluffy. Communication and presentation skills, again, it's just like consulting jargon. It's soft skills. You want to put more industry speak in there, so anything to do with SQL, Python, strategic process ownership. Okay, anything to do with any actual application or systems that you might be familiar with, SAP, Salesforce, CRMs. Okay, industry recruiters love this sort of stuff. Now I'm going to give you guys a bit of a secret tip here. Okay, what I would personally do, and what I did here for this section, is if you actually go to a job post on LinkedIn that you're looking to apply for, it actually shows you the skills on that job post that are relevant to the role. So you can actually open those and see all the skills are relevant. Try and pack as many keywords into the skills section on your CV as you can from that job post, I mean, okay? Now, I must stress, please don't lie, right? We're looking to be truthful on the CV. Yes, we're looking to show how much experience we've got and how great we are going to be for that role in industry, but please do not lie on your CV. You will just get found out at the interview phase, okay? And you'll go into that interview feeling less confident because you know you've exaggerated the truth a bit too much, okay? But any skills from that job post on LinkedIn that you know you have in some shape or form, and that you can put in your CV, absolutely put them in this section as well. It will help with the ATS itself, and also it's just much easier for hiring managers to have a look and be like, yeah, he's got that skill or she's got that skill. Okay, so yeah, that's personally what I would do. So yeah, we've spoken about how to rewrite this CV from a structural perspective and also a language perspective. Obviously, I can't rewrite everything today here, but this will give you a flavor of how I would personally go about doing it and how you guys can do it too. I obviously can't rewrite everyone's CV on YouTube, but if you do want a list of the key translation keywords, a more complete list, you can head over to my Instagram page. The handle is GeorgeOptimize, and if you DM me with the word escape, I will send you a free translation cheat sheet with some of those words that you can replace in your CV and what the more active direct words are, some of which that we've been through today. But again, it'll be a more complete list. So head over to my Instagram, DM me escape, and I'll send that to you for free. You want to exit in the next 60 days, but you want me to personally help you package up your experience so that you don't take a pay cut and even perhaps get a 20 or 30K raise when moving into industry, you can book a free strategy call with me. The link's in my YouTube bio. You don't need to stay stuck. Your dream role is actually just around the corner. See you in the next one.